How's it going today, everybody? Mick back here for a movie review. I recently rewatched the movie The Principal. This is a very good movie that was released in theaters September 18th, 1987. So it is kind of coming up on its birthday. This will be 35 years old this year. First off, directed by Christopher Kane, written by Frank Deese. This stars Jim Belushi as Rick Latimer, Louis Gossett Jr. as Jake Phillips, Ray Dawn Chong as Hillary Orozco or Miss Orozco, Michael Wright as Victor Duncan, J.J. Cohen as White Zach, S.A. Morales as Ramey Rojas, Troy Winbush as Baby Emil, Jacob Vargas as Arturo Diego, and Kelly Jo Minter as Trina. This review will have spoilers in it, so if you've never seen this movie, be forewarned, it has spoilers in this review. So just a very quick synopsis of what this movie is actually about. Jim Belushi plays a character called Rick Latimer. He is a school teacher who is actually just kind of newly coming off of a divorce, and he's kind of trying to work through that in his life and everything. Well, the movie begins with Rick sitting around the bar with a few of his friends having a few drinks or whatnot, and he happens to see his ex-wife walk in with another man. But what makes it worse is it's not just any man. The guy that she's with is her lawyer, who is the lawyer for their divorce or whatnot. So that just kind of rubs Rick really the wrong way, and he kind of flies off the handle. He jumps over the bar. He grabs a baseball bat that was hanging on the wall, and he goes and he runs after this guy. He is like ready to give him the beatdown of a lifetime, and he chases him through the bar. He eventually chases him outside. The guy jumps into his very nice red Porsche. Rick is basically telling him to get out. He doesn't want to get out, and who blames him? So he goes ahead and he has batting practice on his Porsche and basically destroys about everything you could possibly destroy on the outside of it. Windows, mirrors, everything. So he got his comeuppings a little bit, I suppose. But also, of course, was arrested for it, and the school didn't look too kindly on that, you know? So they eventually end up firing him from his teaching job, but in a weird way, they give him a silver lining, because where one job ends, another one is about to begin for him, and they offer him an opportunity to become a principal over at a school called Brandell High School, which is on the very bad side of town. It's a bad gang-infested high school, fighting, drugs, everything that you really don't want in a high school. Rick basically has nothing right now. He's lost his teaching job. He's lost his wife. He has nothing. So he reluctantly accepts the job as principal. So now with that out of the way, and you guys have an idea of what this movie is about and his situation and the events leading to the situation, let's pick this movie up with Rick's first day on the job. He witnesses a gang fight outside, so outside of the school grounds, between two guys from rival gangs. You very quickly find out that Rick has no fear, and he goes right after these guys and he breaks it up. He figures out that they're both students. He takes both of them with him inside of the school, into the office, and he is going to attempt to punish these students somehow. But again, as you will quickly find out, punishment and repercussions don't really happen at this school too often, because the school is basically run by the gangs, or the inmates run the asylum, as the saying goes. And as he's trying to figure out how to punish these guys, you can kind of see that the teachers in the office area are kind of frustrated with him because they don't really know what to think of somebody coming in and taking their job seriously, I guess. After sitting down and talking with these guys and trying to figure out what the fighting is all about, Rick discovers who they are. The white guy they call White Zach, and the black guy they call Baby Emil, each from a rival gang. So Rick also finds out that the head gangbanger guy that runs the entire school, his name is Victor Duncan. He's the guy that runs the school, all the drugs, and he runs everything. So Rick, not really knowing the entire situation, just coming in, he wants to kind of set the tone that he's going to take no nonsense from people, and he wants to expel these two students. As this is happening, in walks Louis Gossett Jr. He plays a character called Jake Phillips, the head of security at Brandell High School. The principal introduces himself as Rick Latimer, and Jake Phillips, unimpressed, replies, "No shit," and takes the two guys to their classrooms. As the guys are being escorted to their classrooms, one of the other teachers who are still in the office tries to explain to Rick that Brandell High School is basically a last resort for fuck-ups. It's the last place a kid is offered to go, and their last chance to not be, and I'm going to use a phrase from the movie or the show Trailer Park Boys, to not be a shit apple off of the old shit apple tree. So they kind of try and cut these kids a break. Now with this knowledge and a better understanding of what is going on at Brandell High School, Rick gets a tour of the place from Jake. I mean, they end up hitting it off. They end up becoming very good friends, actually. And this is just the beginning of that. After getting settled in with his new job and everything, Rick tries to go back and patch things up with his ex-wife. He wants to tell her about his new, basically promotion, because it is a job promotion for him. And she basically just kind of mocks him and says, "Yeah, you're the principal at Brandell." And is kind of a real bitch to him and just drives away. This in turn actually motivates Rick and gives him, the desire to want to really turn Brandell into a good high school. About 25 minutes into the movie, we get our first glimpse of the good that Rick wants to do for the students there, because he's getting a drink of water from the drinking fountain in the hallway, I believe, and he notices this one student being chased by what looks like gang members, and you could tell this guy's trying to get away from them, and he notices the kid kind of duck into the gymnasium area, and the kid runs and basically hides under the bleachers. So Rick goes into there to try and befriend the guy and talk with him and find out what's going on and if he could help him and whatnot. And it turns out that the guy doesn't want Rick's help, and he's kind of heard the story about Rick and why he's at Brandell, in the principal position he's in right now, and how he got in trouble at his old job and all that stuff. And he's heard, word gets around, so they heard about him, and he basically told him, "Fuck you, I don't want your help." But we'll just put a little bookmark in that, because those guys kind of turn out to be friends too. That was a nice icebreaker for Rick and this student here. After this encounter with the student Ramey in the gymnasium, Rick feels kind of discouraged, but also encouraged, because he heads straight to basically the teacher's lounge to make an announcement to all of the teachers to basically get them all on the same page. But Rick soon finds out that these teachers, quite a few of them really don't care, and they're just there kind of phoning it in, getting their check. He approaches one teacher who was supposed to be instructing a class, but instead of in class, he's in the break room reading the paper. Rick snaps on him and tells every teacher in there all the students need to gather in the auditorium for an assembly in which all the teachers basically think that's just a horrible idea and we shouldn't do it. The teacher's lounge scene also marks the first time that we see Miss Orozco, played by Ray Dawn Chong. She kind of quietly seems impressed with Rick's initiative here to gather all the students for an assembly. Eventually, as requested, all the students are gathered in the auditorium for the assembly. Rick comes out onto the stage to address the entire student body and says, "I'm not going to lecture you guys on the values of education." To that, he got a loud uproar of applause and approval. He says he has just two simple words: "No more." Rick gets booed, and someone yells, "Fuck you," at him, to which Rick replies, "I'm impressed they told me you couldn't form complete sentences here at Brandell." Again, Rick reiterates his two very simple words: "No more." No more missing classes, no more gambling, no more extortion, no more drug dealing on campus, no more gang intimidation. Also at this point, about 30 minutes into the movie, we see our first glimpse of Victor Duncan. He walks into the auditorium and starts walking down the aisleway to the stage where Rick is at. Rick tells him to sit down, and Victor replies, "You talk too much." And he basically instigates a fist fight with some of the students in the auditorium, which caused Rick and also Jake to have to run over there and break everything up. Rick chases after Victor in the hallway to basically tell him that things are changing here at Brandel. Victor stops, and he tells Rick that school is shit, and he runs this place. And he pulls out a switchblade, starts walking towards Rick, and actually hands it to Rick and tells him, "If you're going to be here, you're going to need this." So he gives Rick his switchblade knife and starts to walk away. Rick just simply breaks the blade in half and throws it on the ground and tells him, "You don't make the rules anymore." So the next day, Rick starts to clean the school up a bit as he's informed that there's a girl up in the girls' bathroom selling dope in one of the stalls. So he runs up there and he ends up busting the girl, which ends up being the character named Trina. So she's sitting in there and she's selling dope and everything, and it turns out that it's Victor's dope. Rick doesn't care, he takes it all and he flushes it right down the toilet. The following day at school, Rick adds more security to help out his head of security, Jake Phillips. This is a great help for Jake, and they start out immediately by basically being hall monitors and sweeping the hallway of all the students that should be in their classes and everything. And that works like a charm. Rick helps out a little bit rounding up the students as well to bring them into their classrooms, and he ends up bringing one up to Miss Orozco's class, but he has to interrupt the class in order to get him seated in his seat. Miss Orozco waits till the end of the class session, but she isn't too happy with Rick for interrupting her class like that, and she lets him know. Almost immediately after this, Rick is heading back to his office, and he has his second encounter with Victor. And Victor's standing up on the stairwell, and Rick is kind of down below, and they're talking back and forth. Or vice versa, maybe Rick was up top and Victor was down below. But whatever way it was, Victor basically threatens him and tells him he could take him out anytime he wants to. And Rick tries to make nice with him and tries to befriend the guy, and he just wants nothing to do with it. And he pretty much just tells Rick to get out of here while you still have a chance. After this second encounter with Victor, Rick basically goes for a meeting with all the teachers to rally them all and to give them the confidence that they need to perform their duties and get this school up and running as it should be. Rick also finds out that the girl that he busted for selling dope in the bathroom wants to drop out of school. And where she got popped selling some dope, it wasn't like a huge amount or anything like that, and it was just basically a slap on the wrist type of thing. And Rick did not want to see this girl drop out. So he ends up finding where she lives. He goes and he talks with her. And upon talking with her, he finds out that she actually has a son. And Rick, being a teacher at heart, asks her to come back to school. He doesn't want to see her drop out. And he offers to mentor her and tutor her for her classes if she needs it. And also tutor her for like job training and things like that if she would like it. And she actually agrees. And she agrees to show up the next morning at the school. But she ultimately sets Rick up to get jumped from behind by Victor's gang. And while he's getting jumped, a couple of the other gang members are outside, basically just destroying his motorcycle, taking it apart. So Rick gets beaten badly. They put a bag over his head and they just really give him a horrible beatdown. And he's walking outside of the school to go find out what they've done to his motorcycle. And he sees the auto shop or body shop, nearby where his bike is at. And he knows that the guys that are the students working in the auto shop seen what happened. So he goes in there with this gas tank and he throws it against the wall. And he says basically, "Who did this?" And of course, nobody wants to tell on who did it because they're afraid of the repercussions on them. So they tell Rick, "We can't tell you who did it, but we can rebuild your bike for you if you want us to." And he happily agrees to that. As his bike is being fixed, he decides to head back over to Trina's apartment, even though she set him up, because he still really doesn't want to see her quit school. She has a kid and everything. So he offers her one more last opportunity to come back. So Rick goes to pick up his motorcycle and he sees that the shop guys put a little bit of custom paintwork on it for him. They put El Principal on the gas tank and they hooked his helmet up with the same thing. And he likes it. So he starts to take off and he has this really stupid idea in his head because he found out that Duncan was doing a drug deal off campus somewhere. And he had it in his head that he wanted to interrupt this drug deal and lure Duncan back to the school where he knew a bunch of students were at, you know. So if Duncan like pulled a gun on him or something like that, he would have witnesses and somebody would, you know, say it was Duncan. Well, that does not go as planned. Because of course nobody will narc on Duncan. So Rick really shouldn't have tried to pull this stunt. It was kind of stupid and dangerous. And his head of security, Jake, lets him know, man, and he scolds him big time for this. He says, I protect your ass left and right in this school, but as soon as you get outside these walls and out there, I cannot protect you, or something along those lines. Rick goes to leave for the day and he's going out to his motorcycle, and he runs into one of the students who is actually one of the shop students as well that helped repair his bike, and he's kind of gotten friendly with him throughout the movie, and the student's name is Arturo. And it turns out that Arturo is waiting for Miss Orozco to come out to her car because he likes to walk her out to her car and make sure she gets home okay and things like that, because he's a nice kid, he actually is. But the problem is Arturo wasn't the only one waiting for Miss Orozco on this day, as there's a gang member inside of the school waiting for her as well because he knows that she's leaving her classroom for the day and that she's the only one left in the school, basically. So this guy has very, very bad intentions on his mind. He wants to do some bad, awful things to her, you guys can just imagine. And he tries to, and they have a struggle in her classroom. She's able to throw a chair at him, though, that actually shatters the window. And he smacks her in the face, and he's beating her up a little bit. And most likely about to force himself onto her, you know what I mean. Luckily, with her throwing that chair and shattering the window, Rick and Arturo heard this outside. And this is one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie because Rick doesn't even hesitate, man. He just takes his motorcycle, full throttle, bashes right through the front doors of the school, rides through the hallways, up the stairs, a couple of flights to the level of the school that she was on, zooms down the hallway, barrels through the door of the classroom that she's in, into the desks in there and everything, jumps off his bike, unmasks the guy, and it's White Zach, the other gangbanger, beats the fucking shit out of this guy, and he ends up getting arrested. One of the things that I love about this movie is the continuing thread of him being a teacher and wanting to teach and be a friend, where his new job title is, you know, technically principal. He's still a teacher at heart. And there are some instances where he tries to truly genuinely help a couple of the students. Whether it was finding out that the character Arturo couldn't read and he helps him finish his reading lessons that Miss Orozco was working on with him before she was brutally assaulted, or Arturo's friend is actually a writer as well in the story, and you know, Rick just gives him a lot of encouragement and things like that with this journal writing, which I think is just a nice little touch of the movie, you know. Rick is also seen having kind of a heartfelt conversation with Jake Phillips, telling him that after they clean the school up, Rick wants to make Jake the principal there. And Jake kind of jokingly says, I don't want the job. While having this conversation, they start to hear a lot of commotion in one of the classrooms right down the hall. So they run down there to see what's going on, and they run in to see Arturo hanging on the back of Emil, which is this much bigger guy than he is, and they're fighting because I guess Arturo had found out that Emil has an involvement in Miss Orozco getting roughed up. After getting everyone settled down, Rick was talking to Arturo and discovered that Emil had quit Victor's gang today. And when he found this news out, Rick went to talk to Emil almost immediately to try and befriend him again and get on the right side with him. So they were talking and things like that, and through talking, he found out that Victor is the one that set up Miss Orozco because he bailed White Zach out of jail. And Victor wanted Emil to take part in this as well, but Emil did not want to, and basically told him, "No way, I'm out." After that, Rick ends up heading over to Miss Orozco's house to see how she's doing, how she's feeling, and everything, and to tell her to take her time and come back to school whenever she feels that she's ready. Rick decides to head back over to the school just to check things out, make some rounds, and make sure everything is good over at the school. As he's doing that, he's walking up a set of stairs inside the school when all of a sudden, through the window above him, comes crashing down Emil, who is tied from his ankles and beaten very, very badly in the face and bloody. Emil is in critical condition, and Rick cries out for help and for somebody to call for an ambulance. They have to rush Emil to the hospital, and Rick is just absolutely gutted and devastated by what has happened to Emil because he's taken a real liking to him. So he goes to see him in the hospital. So in one of the most real moments of this movie, Emil is laying in the hospital bed, and Rick basically just lays it all on the line and tells him all of his feelings and things like that, and basically tells him he's going to give up and things like that. He doesn't think that he's awake. Emil's kind of laying there with his eyes closed, and Emil opens his eyes and basically tells Rick, "If you quit, I got my ass beat for nothing." Emil saying all of this to Rick basically gives Rick the kick in the ass and the motivation he needed at this moment. And Rick begins to devise a plan to get Victor expelled from the school, potentially arrested, because that's really what has to be done. The final act of the movie will begin with Rick tutoring Arturo after school in Miss Orozco's classroom. He's working on his reading skills comprehension with him and all of that thing. So while they're doing this, Miss Orozco makes her return to the school. And this is after she had already told Rick that she's not returning because she had applied for a different job, which I forgot to mention earlier. But she has since changed her mind and decided that she wants to come back. At this moment, she also informs Rick that none of the students have left to go home, and they're all hanging around out in the parking lot and along the fence line to watch what's about to happen. Rick's head of security, Jake, tells Rick that they need to chain the doors shut to the school right now. But unfortunately, it's too late because Victor and his gang have already infiltrated the inside of the school. One of Victor's henchmen somehow lures Jake into the equipment room, and as he's in there, he closes the door behind him and padlocks the door. So now Rick is essentially all by himself, and the other two gang members end up cornering Rick in the girls' shower room. And this ends up being just one big cat and mouse game of, hide and seek, basically, until they finally end up catching up with Rick. And Victor, of course, he doesn't want to do the dirty work himself. He wants his lackey to do it for him. So he commands his lackey, I believe his name is Jojo in this movie, he commands him to slice Rick's neck. And at this moment, Jojo gets a conscience and is like, "Nah, fuck you. You want to do this, you do it yourself. We've scared him enough. That should be it. I don't want to kill the guy." So Victor did not like this, not one bit, and he did not even hesitate, and he shot Jojo right in the head, killed him right there. Victor now realizes that if he wants this job done, he's going to have to do it himself, and he's just about to do it, points the gun right at Rick's head, when all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, Arturo comes and kicks the gun out of his hand, causing a much, much needed distraction. This would allow Victor and Rick to get in a good old-fashioned fist fight. Jake bashes his way out of the storage equipment room and tries to run up to help Rick out, but ends up encountering one of the gang members on his way up there. Scuffles with him for a minute, but ultimately ends up throwing him off of the balcony of the stairs and believe he broke his back or died on impact. Jake also comes across White Zach in there, the guy responsible for that brutal assault on Miss Orozco, so they have themselves a quick little scuffle, but Jake makes very quick work of White Zach. Rick and Victor continue fighting, and it's really not even close, man. Rick is just straight up beating his ass. Eventually, Victor's had enough of it, and he asks Rick, "No more, no more." The fight ends up spilling out in front of the school with all the students watching along, and Rick just continues the beat down on Victor. The police end up showing up, they arrest Victor, and they haul him away. Good ending to a fantastic movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I do not think it gets enough credit in the history of movies. Well acted by everybody in this movie, including the supporting actors and actresses. I really can't say enough good things about this. It is on Tubi. You can watch it for free with ads on Tubi. Otherwise, it's very easily found on DVD and Blu-ray and whatnot. Awesome movie. One of Jim Belushi's finest movies. And this shows the true depth of his acting skills, in my opinion. Thank you for watching. Give a like to the video if you liked it, and let me know your thoughts. If you've ever watched this movie or not, let me know what you think about it. Have a good day.